touch. Grace got me up, baby, too much. Walking on the way, Holy Spirit clutch. Devil gotta run, Jesus in the front, yeah, covered by the blood. Devil can't touch. Grace got me up, baby, too much. Walking on the way, Holy Spirit clutch. Devil gotta run, Jesus in the. Back then they was hating on me. Now the light of the Lord on me. Cross chain on the ice holy. Test came but a word I was down bad like the night's cold, but he turned the pain into straight gold. Enemies mad cause the truth told. Kingdom boy rich out the streets go. Black on me.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Vontes Point. I'm your host, Joey Vontes, and thank you for being here with me live on LFA TV. In the chat, so many of you are already swarming. Thank you for being here with us, whether you're coming from X, Facebook, Instagram, maybe you're on YouTube, or you're right here on Rumble. Thank you so much for coming through and for joining us for this special segment that we have lined up for you this evening. Now, I want to start this whole thing off first and foremost by saying if you've not subscribed, if you've not hit follow, depending on where you're watching or whatever platform you're using, do that right now. Smash that subscribe button, hit the follow button. Make sure you are up to speed on all the details of anything that we drop, any new content, any new breaking news, and so forth. You want to be up to speed on all of that, so do that right away. And listen, if you've not been to our website, please pop over to lfatv.us right now. Live from America TV network right here. You can get access to all of our shows. You can pop into the store, or you can click on the news tab and get all of the latest popular conservative news feed from around the nation. All the articles you're not going to want to miss right here from lfatv.us. And further, if you have not followed me already, you can do so on all platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, X, at Joey Vontes. And someone, can you put that in the chat for me if you would? Right here on my site, if you haven't been there, if you ever have any issues with the stream link directly from Rumble or wherever you're using it, you can go to my site, you can click on the picture here, and it'll take you right to the alternative stream link so you can always watch and catch the latest show and episode. You can also pick up some merch from my store, including on the far left-hand side for the believer, a daily devotional and witness survival guide. This is so powerful to so many who have already used this. I'm telling you, it's a great tool. It gives you a 365-day plan for Scripture, breaks down some explanation about it, and also gives you some tools for prayer to get yourself prepped up daily, get yourself in the flow of getting that consistency of spending that time with the Lord, praying, reading your word, and also it couples with the Swiss Army Guide for Witnessing. This is a powerful tool to break down scriptures, give you ideas about conversations that different types of religions or even atheists would likely have with you, and challenging you and getting you equipped. As Paul told Timothy, be ready in season, out of season, right? Make sure that you are someone who is prepped up and aware of the different types of devices and tools that the enemy uses so that you can be prepared for all good works. So necessary. Also, you can pick up my guide to Whitney Webb's One Nation Under Blackmail. It's called The Blackmail Blueprint. Breaks everything down, gives you a concise, comprehensive overview of the details of names, all of the important information that's packed away in that 1,300-page 2 volumes that Whitney Webb has created as a masterpiece. This is The Blackmail Blueprint to give you all that information. And lastly, my favorite, the classic How to Fight Ideological Subversion. This is all about psychological operations, helping you to spot them, recognize them, wake up and break free, and also share the information with others. All of these books are electronic. They're instantly available. Once you purchase, you get the downloads for them immediately. They come in ebook format and also in PDF. Now, you can also hop over and join the Truth Uncensored Members Only Club for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year. Get anytime access to behind-the-scenes content that is not available anywhere else. You can also watch my documentary, The Devil in Disguise, for free right on my site, joeyvontes.com. And last but not least, if you want to support our mission to continue alternative free speech that is censored across the board, no matter where you look, right here you can do that. You can make a donation directly on the site, joeyvontes.com, one time, monthly, or annually, and we greatly appreciate all of that from you. Now, today, chat, We have a powerful interview lined up, and I can't wait to share this with you. We have the 5th District Congressional candidate, none other than Alex Stovall, with us, and we're going to get to that in just a second. I cannot wait to share that with you. Alex is going to come on live. We're going to discuss some topics, going to ask him some questions, and really get a live look into who Alex is, his view, his perspective on this nation, on Arizona, and what he brings to the table in terms of making impact and helping to make America great again from a congressional standpoint. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to tap it in just a second. But before we do, let's pause for a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Well, it's that time of year again, isn't it? My favorite time of year, fall. Oh, I love the leaves. I love the autumn smell. I love the pumpkins. I love it all right before the snow flies. But what I don't love that comes with the cold weather and the fall weather is the flu, are the sniffles, the cold, all those common cold sniffles that you get every year. And if you have kids in the house, little kids going to and fro school, and they're coming back and they're touching everything and they're bringing the bacteria and all those viruses home from school, you don't want anything to do with that. You want to be proactive rather than reactive. That's why we're going to talk about propolis today. You know what propolis is? Well, ladies and gentlemen, propolis is what works as a barrier to keep the beehive absolutely safe. And what am I talking about? Well, beekeepers naturals. Now, my wife really turned me on to this. This is an endorsement of my wife and then myself as well. Beekeepers Naturals, folks, that is exactly what this is. This is a proactive rather than a reactive, all natural, all clean alternative to big food and big pharma. Beekeepers Naturals, and I got a 20% discount for you. What's better than that? 20% discount. Look, you can even get the throat soothing pops and the kids prebiotic fiber pops, along with the throat spray, along with the nasal spray, along with the vitamin C packs. Folks, they've got it all, and it's an all-natural, clean, beautiful option for you to have in order to, get away from the big food, get away from the big pharma, and go more natural, especially with a 20% discount. How can you not go to Beekeepers Naturals today /LFA and get your 20% discount? Clean out your medicine cabinet today with beekeepers.com /LFA. And now back to the show.
And welcome back. Thank you all for joining us here on the Vontes Point. I'm your host, Joey Vontes, here on LFA TV. And in just a moment, we're going to have the special interview that I can't wait to share with you with Alex Stovall. I think we have him queued up and ready to go in just a moment. But before we even get there, I got a question for you, America, that are watching this right now. How many of you have already taken the step to cancel your Netflix subscription? Drop it in the chat. Let me know. This whole thing is going absolutely crazy, and I'm so glad to see the fact that when the American people come together, look at the types of things that we can accomplish. I mean, we are absolutely pummeling Netflix right now as a whole, and the reason why is because they've tried to come after our kids. They've tried to come after our families. They've tried to come after our society and paint this narrative, paint this woke ideology picture for us that is seeking to destroy people at such an astronomical level that the American people stood up and said, no, enough is enough. We're not going to play that game. We're not going to allow you to spin the narrative and tell us how we're supposed to think and how we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to believe. And you know what I love about it? We kind of saw what took place with Cracker Barrel. They tried to go woke and take away all the Americana, if you will. And the American people spoke out and said, okay, cool, if you're going to do that, we're not even going to show up to your restaurant. We're not going to eat at your establishment. We're not going to play that whole game. And before you know it, they had to bend. They had to come back. They said that they're going to change the whole thing. We saw recently with the ADL. The ADL came out, and while they were naming Antifa as, as sometimes could be a provocative group at times, but more than not, they're very peaceful and just want to have conversation, et cetera, et cetera. That's the way that they were spinning the narrative when it came to Antifa. But for Christians and for groups like Turning Point USA, they were coming out and specifically saying that they were extremists and that they were having extremists and exhibiting extremist ideology and were dangerous and were a threat. That's what they were saying about Christianity above everything else. The fact is that the American people stood up, began to push back on social media across the board. Many high-level influencers began to speak out. and voice these concerns and say, no, we're not going to accept that whatsoever. And what did the ADL do? The ADL came out and apologized and said that they removed it from their category list. They removed it from their index, and they are going to take a step back now and change the way that they come up with their classifications for extremist groups. And they'll come up with something new, and then they'll pitch that. And obviously, I think this is a pause, right? I don't think it's a full-fledged win, but I think it's a temporary win. And it just shows that the power is to the people. That if we rise, if we lift up our voices, if you will, come together and unify, there's really nothing that we can accomplish. Now, yesterday I showed a little bit of a clip of some of the points of conversation that Steven Crowder was having with multiple students at the SMU University as he was getting back to his Change My Mind tour, if you will. And he had a message for the student body who was standing there watching towards the end of his discussion, which I thought was phenomenal. And I want to share that with you right now. I think everybody should listen to this. Check this out.
Guys, this will be probably one of the only times that I address you kind of as a mass of people, because these usually end up being individual conversations. But I wanted to take a moment just to kind of communicate something here. When we started Change My Mind, the idea was back in 2016. But the more I went on campus, the more I saw the failures of the institutions. And I want to be really clear about something. This was never designed to mock, denigrate, or dunk on students who don't know any better. It was always designed to highlight the failures of the institutions, because I was dumbfounded as to the fact when leftists would sit down that this was the first time they were hearing mainstream conservative views. So it was always about highlighting the failures of institutions, and that includes media, but certainly academia. We're actually going to be starting or calling for formal debates with professors. And the only way we can think to get these people to show up is to offer up $10,000 to the school for whatever cause of their choice. And any Tom, Dick, Harry, or Karen who will respond and take the $10,000 offered up as a charitable contribution in any of the departments of political science or liberal arts at the University of Texas, at Kansas University, UCLA, Cal Berkeley, Stanford, USC, Penn State, Columbia, NYU, Harvard, Boston University, any of their esteemed professors in these schools who are willing to have a debate with a college dropout comedian. They can name the time, the place, pick the moderator, and the rules. It should be an easy day out. Thank you.
He is calling these institutions out. This is absolutely epic. We have some things lined up as well that we'll share with you, because I think a lot of people who are joining arms in this whole thing are saying, look, we're going to get out to these college campuses. We're going to get out to these universities. We're going to get out to these places in front of people, not to, again, denigrate, not to shove things down people's throat or make them feel bad or, have an I gotcha moment on camera. It's not about that. This is about showing students and people how the institutions have failed them and us. That's what it's about. It's about showing the truth. It's about having dialogue, civilized discourse, and showing how this has actually happened, why it's important, and why we need to resist it and we need to fight back. The devil exposed is the devil defeated. They don't want this to be exposed. That's why they resist it. That's why they always come with violence. And this is why we have to show that the narrative is truth. Not some doctored up thing where we're coming with violence or with anger. We're coming simply to tear the veil off what has been hidden so people can see it for what it truly is and see these individuals for what they truly are. Now, quickly, before we get to this interview with Alex Stovall, if you haven't seen it yesterday, we had Ice Pope go over during a climate change summit or activity or event and pray over this massive block of ice. And we have wondered and seen, in the last 24 hours, people have gotten really pissed off for a number of reasons. Talking about pro-life, talking about death penalty, especially concerning the situation surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination and what the person who is alleged to be the suspect at this point, guilty of that, they're saying, hey, what are you talking about here? These two are not the same thing. When you're talking about the death penalty and when you're talking about people also being pro-life concerning abortion and the abortion topic. And so a lot of people got ticked off, but this was the Pope. After all the various things that are going on in the world that are of true matters of concern, not some climate change hoax, this is where he was and this is what he was doing.
Pope Francis emphasized that the most effective solutions will not come from individual efforts alone, but above all, from major political decisions on the national and international levels. Everyone in society, through non-governmental organizations and advocacy groups, must put pressure on governments to develop and implement more rigorous regulations, procedures, and controls.
Oh, yeah, I believe it isn't too late, too late, too late, too late. Time to turn around.
The pure insanity and hilarity of this whole situation is crazy to me. After all the things that we could be focusing on, especially as a world leader, as somebody who has major influence in the religious landscape, right? Not to mention my own personal opinion and belief based upon biblical context and history is that the Catholic religion as a whole is a false religion. That's neither here nor there to you. That's the reality of the situation. When I look into history and study the Bible, that's exactly what it is. But this man, having this much influence, decides to be at this climate summit, putting his hand on ice. I bet his hand was frozen afterwards. Totally insane, total mania, if you will. And this is what's happening in our world. And I mean, to piggyback on top of that, we can talk about the government shutdown and what's taken place there. And with respect to the reasons why it's occurred, let's get that directly from none other than Anna Paulina Luna. Check this out.
I'd have to say one of the grossest things that I've had to witness in Congress is the lack of empathy for the American people as a whole. You have the WIC program that currently provides food and nutrition to women, infants, and children specifically, to the tune of 6.7 million individuals rely on this program. And guess what? While Congress is getting a paycheck while we're in a shutdown because they can't put aside their ego and negotiate with the administration, you have people that are genuinely going to starve because of this. So yes, these have consequences when people can't put aside their differences. I would also say that it is factual that they're advocating for healthcare for illegals. Meanwhile, our own people are starving. So if you want to know why people hate politicians, if you want to know why people genuinely can't stand Congress and why we have one of the lowest approval ratings, it's because of stuff like this. It's unacceptable. And the fact is that while Democrats are running down the halls of Congress filming TikTok videos, kids are starving.
It's all about this insane mania from the left. And so we're going to discuss that and so much more here in just a second. We are going to tap in next with this Alex Stovall interview. Let's pause for one quick commercial break, and we'll be right back to dive into this right now here on LFA TV on the Vantes Point. I'm your host, Joey Vantes. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. LFA TV family and Vantes Point family, I want to stop to share with you my book, How to Fight Ideological Subversion, that you can get right now from my website, joeyvantes.com. This book comes in three formats. It comes in EPUB, so you can put it in your Kindle, any of your readers, but you can also get it in PDF. And you also get an audio version of this as well, so you can listen to it if you're driving in the car, etc. This is such a powerful, small, quick, short read that is so impactful. Shares with you the details about how to recognize psychological operations, how to fight them, how to wake others up, and how to help them break free. And this is the beginning here on page 5. It says, you might have heard the term psychological warfare, ideological subversion. These two are one and the same. And in 1984, Yuri Bezmenov articulated how they are used as a covert strategy by foreign powers to undermine and destabilize governments, societies, families, and individuals. As you absorb this manual, I want you to think about how these tactics have and are playing out in the world we live in today. The goal is to arm you with knowledge, to quickly spot ideological subversion, how to effectively fight it. And you can pick up your copy right now by heading to my website, joeyvantes.com. Be sure to pick up your copy right now at joeyvantes.com. Link is in the description or the bio, depending on where you're watching this. And I look forward to getting your feedback on my book, How to Fight Ideological Subversion. Now back to the show. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're sitting down with Alex Stovall, U.S. Army veteran and Republican candidate for Arizona's 5th Congressional District. Now, he's a man who has spoken openly about his faith, his service, and the need to shake up the system many Arizonans feel, honestly, is broken. So this isn't about sound bites or some headlines. This is about giving you a real chance to hear from Alex Stovall directly for yourself. And so over the course of this segment, We're going to dig into who Alex is, why he's running, and what it could mean not only for Arizona, but for the country as a whole. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining with us, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Hey, Joey, thanks for having me. It's truly an honor and a privilege, brother.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much. So, Alex, I want to jump right into this because I want to start with what's happening right now, right? As of today, it's been official. The government has officially shut down and become, it's because Congress couldn't pass this funding bill. And so for people who are new to politics, Alex, what does a government shutdown actually mean in practice? And how does it affect everyday Americans in Arizona and across the country as a whole? And what could you do, or what would you do differently if you were in Congress today?
Well, for starters, I'll say I'm into building bridges, not burning them and asking for a yacht. I'm disappointed at the left-leaning side. I mean, they're more interested in propaganda, attacking the right and pointing the finger at people rather than getting good policy and good legislation passed for the American people and ultimately the people in my congressional district. So I know for a fact some of the things that they were trying to push were going to be good for the American people. I won't go into too much of the boring details of legislation and policy, but individuals that are on staff in DC specifically, the ones that are actually the backbone, I would say, of a lot of legislators and administrators, will go without pay. Veterans that are currently on the active component will cease to be paid. They will keep working. I remember the government shut down in 2018. I still had to show up to work. I still had to do the thing. Just imagine a world where the army or the military just decided to hang the boots and say, "Hey, man, we'll come back in a couple of days or couple of weeks when you guys want to pay us." We would be in chaos. So just thinking about that for a second to put it into perspective, military does have to continue doing what military does, and they don't get paid for it. I know for a lot of veterans' families, that can be extremely difficult and extremely painful in some senses. Maybe their siblings or family members live with them. Maybe their children have medications and things that they need, and they rely on being paid so they can take care of those things. So it's very concerning to see that Democrats on the left side are willing to forego those needs of those families as opposed to just working with the Republicans and the MAGA and the American First agenda. It's really concerning. I'm not really sure how they're getting elected, but my suspicion is there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of seats that are going to potentially get flipped just from seeing this short little glimpse of what happens when we have people that are too far left and extreme.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these midterms are going to be massive. There's going to be a massive shakeup across the board. And I think we hit it right in the head, right? When Maxine Waters was asked yesterday why the government is shutting down, why this is happening, why they won't come to the aisle and meet with Republicans and actually keep the government open, it was clear and simple. They said, because we want to keep the healthcare system open for illegal immigrants. And this has been a big problem right here in Arizona. What would you say in response to that?
I would say, for starters, we need to do everything but the kitchen sink, kind of like the Doge movement. If individuals don't want to actually work for the American people, get out, resign, get fired, because nobody wants to play these shenanigans and these silly little games anymore. You're playing with people's lives in my district that rely on a lot of these programs and systems that have already been implemented to benefit the American people to be suspended. Don't even get me started on the fact that in the big beautiful bill, they actually struck out tax benefits for illegal immigrants and individuals that have businesses that aren't even citizens. Here we are, we have veterans in my district that are homeless, don't have a place to go, and don't have military benefits because the VA is understaffed and undermanned, and they don't really want to do the work in some components. So it's unfortunate to see that we would rather take care of people that aren't tax-paying citizens as opposed to veterans that have served this great nation. Veterans and taking care of the veteran families and first responders is something that's so near and dear to my heart. And that's really what set my fire to get involved. So I think there'll be more individuals that are like me, that are young, that are passionate about the conservative movement and keeping America first, that will get involved just from seeing what we're seeing today.
Without question, I think you hit it again. It's the fact that veterans and people who they don't care about, who they're leaving on the line to fend for themselves in a moment like this, these are the individuals who wake up and see the government for what it truly is, and typically, more than not, vote on the right side. And so we're seeing people who come into this country born illegally, of course, are going to vote left because they're getting all these benefits and things without taxation, without any recourse, just taking it from and out of the hands of the American people who actually deserve it. So it's quite interesting to see. But shifting gears a little bit, Alex, most people really only know candidates through headlines, through what they see through maybe an ad campaign or somebody coming and running a blitz against them and trying to tear them down. But outside of politics, I want people to know a little bit about you, right? What's your background, right? What pushed you into the fight to get involved politically?
Yeah. So my background is really rough. Like most people that grow up in the Black community, low poverty, low income communities. I moved 57 times all over the state of Arizona. I got really good at living out of a box and lying to a lot of my friends. We moved every 3 months. We stayed in abandoned houses as long as we could before the cops were called. We played fun. I say fun games because they were fun for us. So who could take the shower the fastest before the water power, electricity will heat the water and make it hot. We didn't have electricity, so we'd play games and fight and wrestle to see who could get in the shower first before the hot water ran out. I mean, it was craziness, man. We had a dysfunctional family. It was a really challenging time, but I loved my brothers and my brothers loved me, and we stuck together and we made the most out of our situation and circumstances. And I know there's a lot of Americans that have experienced loss, that have experienced poverty, that have experienced some of the things that I'm talking about. So that was kind of what my childhood was. A lot of moving. I got very, very, very good at auditioning for the football teams. I went to 7 high schools. I graduated from Hamilton. Go Huskies!
All
But
right.
nonetheless, I still made the most of my situation, and I think that's what really says and a lot about myself and the embodiment of the American dream. To go from being homeless and living in homeless shelters and sleeping in abandoned houses to serving this great nation, starting a business. So again, here I am 2.5 degrees later and now running for federal office. So most people don't know I was displaced pretty much my entire life just because of some Democrat programs that truly impacted individuals like myself that were living in the projects that we were living in. So that's a little bit about, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's phenomenal because look, a lot of people can connect with that, myself included. I grew up where, my father, my mother, they were pastors at one point. We lived in Atlanta, Georgia. We moved back to Arizona. We were living in housing that was Section 8 at one point, and it was very difficult financially to navigate through some of those spaces. And you see the way people are treated, but you see also the way people are manipulated in those instances and whatnot, and how to vote, what to think against what political party, etc. And so the natural inclination for a lot of people, because of the messaging that's pushed down by the government departments, is especially like Department of Economic Security, is, hey, listen, just stay on the government. Depend on Big Brother, depend on the government. You don't have to worry about going out and making a name for yourself. And so people who try to do that, they're actually, it seems as if they're fought against, and they have more
Well, they're
problems
punished.
than
Let's
issues.
just call it what it is, Joey. They're punished.
That's it.
We live in a society now where individuals that want to do better for themselves and make a better life and maybe they start an LLC, or maybe they start just a different type of business or corporation. The government then says, which is why I think taxation is so asinine. You're working, you're making a better life for yourself and your family. We're going to tax you because you're doing the right thing. My
That's it.
IQ drops just thinking about it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And this is some of the things that I've talked to some of the legislators at the state level as well as the federal level. Guys, we got to do something about this. You guys are punishing people for
Yeah,
doing what America was designed for Americans to do. Create corporations and businesses. Make America great is what? Make corporations great again. America is a corporation.
yeah.
Trump is treating it exactly like he should be treating it. And that is why the markets are at all-time highs. And that's why a lot more Americans are moving to the conservative side, because they can now see the fruit from what happens when we actually do what we're supposed to do and what the forefathers intended. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Exactly.
you off.
No, you're spot on. And I'm glad you took the floor to express that, because it is true. The punishment to the American people trying to live out the American dream is what's taken place. It is really, at the end of the day, I believe this Cloward Piven strategy that is being implemented and forced down the throats of Americans to displace, to overwhelm the systems and eventually bust it and break it so that America can't stand on the way that you're mentioning as a corporation to get the types of investments that America has received under the Trump administration. I believe good people like yourself. And so I think that's fantastic. Your upbringing, you come literally from the ground up, from the ashes, like Phoenix, right? You like a Phoenix, you rose,
Correct.
man. And so I think that's a powerful testimony to your work ethic, to your will, to your consistency, your resiliency to fight back against all odds. And so I think you're a great example of what young Americans who are in that same type of position can look at and say, you know what, I can exemplify that. I can look to him as a person, a role model of where I want to be and what I can achieve if I put my mind and my sweat equity to it. So you're running for Congress, Alex, not state office. Why go straight to Washington? And what do you think you could realistically accomplish as one voice out of the 435?
Well, first and foremost, I would say I allow God to guide my steps. When I was in the military, very comfortable with what I was doing. I worked with unique guys doing unique things in unique places. I was very, very content where I was. But one thing I've always appreciated about how God designed me is when I hear God's voice and I hear him speak to me, as a soldier, I'm very good at following instructions and following orders. When I hear God say, do something, I'm a catalyst. I don't ask questions. Complete understanding is not a requirement for absolute obedience. And as Christians, and this goes out to young people that may not be sure if they're hearing God's voice or not, God is not a God of confusion. I heard God's voice clearly when he said, hey, I want you to not just serve, but I want you to serve in a capacity that you never would have imagined yourself serving in. And when I think of Noah, and I think of Jonah, and Jonah specifically, because he ended up getting swallowed up by a whale. He's like, I'm not helping those people. Because when I first heard about it, politics, I said, I don't want to be one of those suit wearing crazy people that are spitting all over the television and yelling at one side or
That's
the other.
right,
That
man.
was not, yeah, it was not something that I ever thought I would ever be in. And fast forward, just over time, I got asked. I ended up being a regional director for Blexit. I was working with Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum and some of the other people that were a part of that organization. It really fired me up, and I think that's kind of what set me on track to get into the political arena, because someone asked me then, hey, would you consider running for office? And initially I was going to do state, but they said, at the state level, you can, because I asked them, simplify this for me. I'm a soldier. I want to help people. What office could I do have the most impact in and impact the most people? And somebody said, you should run for Congress. And I said, don't know what that is, but great, let's run for Congress. And I
I
said, so
love it.
simplify that. He said, so instead of impacting hundreds of people, you'll impact millions of people. And as a believer, as I wanted to wash the feet like Christ called us to, my eyes got all glass eyed, and I was like, ooh, that sounds like definitely something that I wanted to do. So
Yeah,
God kept putting people in my path to kind of mold and shape my understanding of what it meant to be a conservative. I didn't know much about the Republican Party when I first got in. You know what I knew? I knew
yeah.
this orange guy named Trump, and I got 3 raises while I was overseas. I was loving it. I said, I don't know who this guy is, but he's putting money in my pocket and he's beefing up the military. So that's kind of a little bit of how I got involved in, as opposed to running for state. I was kind of quantum leap because I felt that's where God was calling me. And
Sure.
I didn't want the possibility of someone shaping my ideology. I truly wanted to trust in God and allow him allow me to discern what he was calling me to do. And he shaped my mind, my heart, and my thoughts in that way. I trust in God and I don't trust in man. And I would encourage anybody who's young, God will never fail you. He will give you the insight and the wisdom and the words to say and understanding policy, specifically if you're running to be in office at a state level, federal level, or even the judiciary level.
I love that. And I think you're calling things out that are so crucial, especially to young viewers who are watching this. Obedience is better than sacrifice at the end of the day. When you listen to God's voice and you do what he tells you to do, things always go so much better. And I think of Charlie Kirk's, I guess, words you can say in that he would quote quite often, right? And even the shirt that he would wear, here am I. Right? Here am I, Lord, send
Right.
me. There's people that are needed. And I think a lot of times in the space of the religious world, the Christian world, we tend to think, well, you know what, my areas to serve are being a deacon or being a pastor, or, but not everybody's called to those specific areas. Now,
Right.
granted, we are all called to fulfill the Great Commission, go into all the world, preach the gospel, disciple people, etc. But at the end of the day, God calls us to different areas of service. And in this case, you are being called to an area to serve politically. And I think it's so meaningful that a lot of young people have the characteristics, they have the talent, but they don't recognize that. And so being able to develop that and understand where you can serve best, I think is so crucial. And so, wow, hats off to you for that. Now, Alex, Arizona has undoubtedly become ground zero for controversy, from border security to election fraud, etc. So what do you see right now as the single biggest crisis facing Arizonans, if you were to look at that and rattle that off?
Honestly, inflation. We are the inflation is crushing people in my community. I went to the grocery store the other day and I used to love Simply Orange. I won't buy it anymore. You know why, Joey? Because it's $8 for a bottle of orange juice staying there. It's ridiculous.
It's
So I just
ridiculous.
said, I guess I'm not having any orange juice anymore. I went over to the shelf and I can't make this up. For the first time in a long time, I saw that the shelf was empty. The eggs that were there were multiple eggs in each of the cartons that were broken. Record high inflation is crushing the American person. Now, I will say, because I'm such a huge advocate, and this leads me into my next point of financial literacy, just take a walk with me for a second, metaphorically, Joey. Think of a world where the average young person not only has money, and it's not just in a savings account, but it's in a company, it's in a brokerage account, it's in a business. He who controls the shares controls the company. Imagine if we had an army of conservative people that said, "Hey, wait a second, Apple. Before you try and put something here or build something here, or Microsoft or Costco or Walmart or Google or Amazon or any of these big corporations that come in, Intel included." I'm not attacking these companies or corporations, but I am saying if we all bought shares of these companies, we're now voting members. They don't just get to go to DC and waltz in and lobby and do whatever they want to do, because they answer to us. So
Yeah,
I am very passionate about educating people on options, and not
powerful.
options in the stock market, no pun
Right.
intended, but I mean options to buy companies that are the ones creating a lot of the issues for us in a lot of different cities and communities and congressional districts. So this is
Mhm.
why I get so passionate about the solution to inflation is to lower the cost of living. In my personal opinion, that would be the first step, because most Americans, three-fourths of their income goes to living. I talked to somebody the other day paying $2,500 for a one-bedroom apartment. They're at the back door the minute they walk in. I couldn't believe it. And here they are living paycheck to paycheck. But guess what? They're still voting conservative because they trust in Trump. They trust in what he's doing. They trust in the policies. They trust in me because we've spoken on multiple occasions about financial coaching. So I'm helping them get into a place where they have that freedom to say, you know what? I don't want to be in an apartment anymore. I want to get them to a place where they never have to say, how am I going to afford a house? They're going to
Mm.
have an account where they can go in and say, hey, I've got all this money. I've worked my butt off the last 10 years, and maybe I don't want to work anymore. I'm going to live off of these dividends. God
Right.
calls us to be a good steward of money. And right now in Congress, we do not have people that are being good stewards of money. Here we are, $36 trillion later. It's not everybody in Congress, but the mass majority of them need a reality check. There's no
That's right.
reason we should have gotten this high up in a debt ceiling. It's just craziness to me. So,
Yeah. And I think
inflation, to answer your question.
absolutely. And I hit again, I think this is perfect because this really tells people that they have to take personal responsibility of their own finances, of their own life, right? You can't expect at the end of the day that the government's going to fix everything for you. There's great people like yourself that are getting involved, but I think at a micro level, that's really where it's tackled, is people getting in, investing in companies, taking ownership, and being able to get themselves in a position where they have a say. And if you're not at the table, guess what? You don't have a say. And so I just actually spoke this to my audience recently about the fact that there's more of us than there are of them in terms of people who are so-called in power. And the power
100%.
really lies in the people, but it is rare for people to unify. And I think, house divided against itself obviously can't stand. And the more that we come to the table and unify and get invested and take ownership, I think we can do so much good. I mean, what would be your response to that?
I would say 100% I agree. And just to touch back on Charlie real quick. Charlie did an incredible job in inspiring millions of young individuals to have a voice, to speak up. However, now that Charlie is gone, I think it set a fire in individuals.
Mm.
I'm upset at my generation, not because of not having knowledge or education, but because it took something like this to happen for individuals to get activated. It
Yes.
shouldn't, it should never get to this place where now we've lost one of the most influential leaders in our history, probably in our era, and to some crazy loony person, and it's unfortunate that it
You're
happened.
right.
But I am really hoping that this is not a firecracker movement, and that individuals that are saying I'm stepping up to become Charlie, figuratively speaking, are actually going to do kind of what we're talking about. I
Right.
challenge everybody who's listening who's young, don't just be that person that says, oh yeah, I'm going to get involved, and then not find somebody like Joey or not find somebody like me to really get your hands in the dirt, because
Yeah.
it takes a village to do what we're talking about. So 100% agree with you.
Absolutely. You know, it reminds me of, you know, lighting a fire, right? Lighting a fire, you can light it up, you can put some wood in, but if you don't continually feed wood into that system, guess what? It's going out. And it's a requirement of each and every person to say, you know what? I'm going to place this wood. And sometimes, like you said, you need a village, you need good people around you to continually keep that fire going. Iron sharpens iron. And this is what it's all about. And I don't believe, and maybe I'm being very optimistic, Alex, but I don't think that this is going to be some firecracker movement. I truly believe that what we're witnessing is revival, and I believe it's going to be here to stay. I see people rising up. It's crazy. Just the other night, we went over to the University of Arizona campus, and we stood out in front of the back of the student union, actually, with no lights, no sound system, one guitar, a couple singers, and we had a couple hundred people flood the whole place singing worship. I think over 150
Wow.
people gave their life to Jesus Christ. And we're seeing people coming out the woodwork and saying, you know what? I'm inspired. I'm fired up. I want to do something. I want to get involved. What can I do? I just want to be a part of this thing. And I think it's here to stay. But it is crucial for leaders like you and I to step in and say, how can we fan the flames of revival?
good.
How can we be consistent to speak into these individuals and not allow it to just be goosebumps and feelings, but to give them some foundational components that they can build their life upon, some discipleship, if you will, in life and in spirituality.
Right.
And so I can appreciate that very much. So I think you are absolutely spot on. Now,
And I'm pragmatic. I know that not everybody, many are called and few are chosen, right? I know not everybody can be Charlie Kirk. You and I both know that. But if
right.
you're a spoon, find out what that role of that spoon's going to be in this movement. If you're a fork, and also caution, if you're a fork, don't try and do what a spoon can do. If you're a
That's
spoon,
right.
don't try and do what a fork can do, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to add that. I don't think Joey or myself are challenging people to do something that God did not design you to do. We're just saying get involved with the movement, understand that God has a purpose for you, and you've got to get around the right people in order to find that. So I just wanted to make that clarification so people didn't feel any type of way. I'm not targeting anybody who hasn't spoke
Absolutely.
out or been a leader. So
Yep, I think that's spot on. Absolutely. Yeah, you got to cultivate your craft. You got to find where you're supposed to be serving in the part of the body that God designed and ordained you to do. And that also is helped and assisted by getting under good leadership of individuals who can recognize things and pull that greatness outside of you. That's what Charlie Kirk was so good about, man. I mean, he was undeniably able to find talent and help people to come outside their shell and give them a platform for expression. And that expression turned into excellence. And we've seen what that's turned into since then. So that's fantastic. People notate that and timestamp that down. If nothing else you hear in this conversation, that is a powerful point. Now, Alex, many voters believe that corruption runs deep in this state. I think we can both, confirm that with absolute certainty. And even calling Governor Katie Hobbs Cartel Katie. Now, do you think the leadership in Arizona is compromised? And how would you root it out being in Congress?
well, I would say using the spirit of discernment is how you root it out. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of legislators do is they go in and they lean on their own understanding. They don't lean on God's understanding. One thing you'll hear me echo time and time again, my campaign is a spiritual campaign. I allow God to lead and guide my steps, because if I don't, I mess things up and I make mistakes, and then it costs people. As a leader, you can't afford to make those kind of mistakes that I've made, because it really impacts the people in your district, the people in your community, and ultimately yourself and your own image. So, really leaning on God's understanding. I try and steer clear from looking at Katie Hobbs' flaws, and I try and focus on what I can control. And what I can control is talking to my neighbors all in and out of my community. That's what I would say. As somebody who's elected locally in the party, I have the privilege of talking to my constituents and my neighbors every day because I run around in my neighborhood. And because it's a new development, I meet somebody new every day. I build relationships with them. I get to hold their babies. You know what I mean? God was about relationships. So this is how we combat that.
That's
I
right.
can't speak to the I was going to use a different word, the ridiculousness that Katie Hobbs has been conducting. And I don't know her heart. God knows her heart, and she'll be held accountable for every ridiculous veto that she's done in her rather pitiful duration of time in office. But that's my personal opinion. Again, I'm not here to attack people's character, I attack people's policy. I'm very disappointed with this governor. She had such an opportunity to really make America great and really make Arizona great, and she failed. I mean, she
Yes,
she fails every day, and it's just disheartening to see it because she's costing she's costing the American people a lot, especially in Arizona. And I don't
absolutely.
even think she cares. So
Yeah, it's staggering the multiple investigations that have been brought up now, the multiple things that are happening behind the scenes, and I think a lot of this is going to come to light very soon here, and it's going to be very revealing, which I'm grateful for in the sense that the devil exposes, the devil defeated, and I think when people don't have a substantiation of claims or speculation that's put out there, it still leads people to believe, okay, well maybe that was false, but when people can see evidence and proof there's nothing like it, right? It exposes these deeds of darkness and allows these types of leaders and leadership to be rooted out so that real good quality leadership, like potentially Andy Biggs, can come in and do a phenomenal job in that particular spot. So I guess piggybacking onto that, Carrie Lake, right? She had the governor race and whatnot, and she remains, which remains disputed after in the eyes of so many in Arizona who were looking at the race. Do you believe that Carrie Lake actually lost, or do you think the system failed voters in that whole instance?
you know, Arizona's always had election issues, Maricopa County specifically. Anybody with an IQ of room temperature knows that there was some funny business that went on. I mean, the voting, counting, tabulation machines were out for 24 hours or something asinine like that.
Right.
I, I think there's a lot of challenges with the elections in Arizona, and it frustrates me. I really don't know what else to say about that. And I think that we've got the right people working. Members like Jake Hoffman, Neil Carter, Michael Way, just to name a few that are really, really pushing this issue to ensure that
Right.
there's accountability that's brought back to the state legislation and to the county recorder's office at Maricopa County. So I do think that God is sovereign over good and evil, whether people believe that or not. And I do think that the truth will come to light sooner than we think. So I admire what Carrie Lake tried to do, and tearing the veil is what I would say on a lot of stuff that she exposed, and I commend her for that. And I'm disappointed in the outcome, whether it was true or not. I'm just disappointed in the outcome. I think legislators should have pushed harder. I think federal legislators should have pushed harder to give the
Right.
American people the results that they believe were the results, in my opinion.
Agreed. And you nailed it right there because the veil was really torn. I think a lot of the work behind the scenes that a lot of people might look at who voted for Carrie Lake and who voted Republican in the number of races that just took place in the last couple of years, I think people can look back and say, hey, you know what, we lost. It's another failed attempt, especially down in a place like Tucson, right, that is extremely blue, has been blue for so many years. People can look at that and see it as a major loss. But I think ultimately, when you take the 30,000-foot view and you look down upon it, what I'm seeing is this veil's being ripped off, and you have to break up the fallow ground before you can get to anything worth actually putting seeds upon that can grow and be fertile. So I see it as a shaking, if you will, and I see the
Mhm.
midterms coming up as the time when that fertile ground is there, that these seeds that have been laid are finally going to produce a crop. It's going to produce some kind of fruit. And so saying that,
Right.
looking back at 2020, right, and this is my last historical question, if you will, do you believe election fraud took place in 2020 in the presidential run? And how should Congress act to guarantee election integrity going forward?
Well, I believe that fraud did take place in the election. I think fraud takes place in a lot of our elections, and a lot of federal officials and legislators just kind of turn their face to the side and just pretend like it's not happening.
Right.
And I always think of that reference, the girl with the red slippers clicking her heels together. I wish I was home. I wish I was home is kind of the analogy that a lot of these legislators and federal elected officials have done for so long, but no longer can they do that because the American people are now the midterms. It shouldn't be called midterms. It should be accountability terms, because this upcoming cycle, people are going to be held accountable. And if you get elected or not elected, you're still accountable. It is up to the American people to ensure the right person gets in office, and that the right person that does get in office, we hold their feet to the fire. We hold them accountable in all aspects, not just okay when they get in, lottie dottie, and we just kind of forget about them. No, we need to pay attention to what's being passed, what they're voting on, what their voting record is, what they're up to up there. Because if we don't, we're going to have a lot of what we had in 2020 and so on and so forth. So I think the SAVE Act that Chip Roy is talking about is a great step in the right direction to ensure that our elections are free, fair, and have up the utmost integrity and accountability. So I'm really in favor of the SAVE Act, and I'm really hoping that it becomes a statewide thing. So if you guys don't know about the SAVE Act, please do check it out. It's a pretty interesting bill.
Powerful, powerful. We've discussed that on my show a number of times and kind of dove into the specifics and whatnot. I think definitely has my support, and I think the support of so many. And I think to add to that as well, ultimately, at the end of the day, there is going to be fraud no matter where you step your feet, especially in politics. There's going to be a number of things that happen on the back end. But I think overall, as we continue to proceed, we get people active and involved. We, the people, have the ability to continue to fight back by our votes, getting involved and holding, like you said, their feet to the fire. These are public servants. When you get into this role, they have the awareness that they are hopping into a public service role to serve the people, not to serve
100.
themselves, not to serve their pockets, not to see how many lobbyists that they can get to fund whatever they're trying to do in their lifestyles. This is about the people. And so make no mistake about it. We can clearly see here that, Alex, you are a man of the people, and we appreciate you. So moving along, kind of switching gears, pivoting, if you will, okay? Charlie Kirk's, his sudden death. This, not even death, it is an assassination without question. It shocked Arizonans, people across the nation, globally. Do you trust the official account right now of what happened to Charlie Kirk, or do you believe that there's some unanswered questions at this point that are still swirling around that need to be looked at more with an eye of scrutiny?
I think there are some unanswered questions, and I think the president is going to bring that to light and share it with the American people. That's my honest opinion. I think the president's probably looking into this deeper than many of us know, and if he doesn't know, he will know soon, and I think he'll disclose that information with us relatively soon here. Um, the whole setup, I think I watched your video or somebody else's video about the movie Snake Eyes, and just the comparisons were just a little interesting to me. So
Yeah, it's
I'm hoping that in the next few weeks that something does come out, and I think it'll ease the minds and the hearts of a lot of the Arizonans and voters and the Turning Point movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking about such a good man as Charlie Kirk was and still is, his legacy is going to continue to live on no matter what. You know, Turning Point USA, founded right here in Arizona, has been this major force in conservative politics, but just done so much good, right? My question is, have you had any history and any connection with TPUSA? I know you mentioned Blexit, but have you had any direct connection with TPUSA, and what role did you play in helping to maybe shape, or will help shape, that future movement as we move into 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, well, by default, Turning Point is everywhere in Arizona. So one way or another, if you're inside, like I worked the Trump victory campaign, Turning Point helped with that. By default, I've always been connected with Turning Point, door knocking, getting get out the vote movements, building the structure and the party, and the movement of Turning Point as a whole. We now have a chapter actually in Pinal County that just launched. So Turning Point, I'm a first vice chair of Pinal County Republicans Club, and Turning Point is pretty integrated into what we're doing. And to answer your question, yes, I've worked very closely with Turning Point, and I think as time progresses, I'll continue to work closely with them.
That's fantastic. That I think that's going to really boost the minds of so many because people are really getting behind them. They love what Turning Point stands for: the consistency, the truthfulness, the reliability, and ultimately the reputation speaks for itself. And I think it'll continue to as we move on into these next upcoming years. Now, quickly, Alex, Washington, as we know, runs on spending, right? And so if you're elected, okay, what federal programs do you think you're going to want to cut? And what do you think you want to fight to increase for Arizona's benefit?
You know, respectfully, no disrespect to anybody who has this ideology or social view, but transgender, LGBTQ, XYZ, running out of letters in the alphabet, any type of legislation like that for funding transgender iguanas and shenanigans like that, all that stuff's getting ripped out. And then we can take that money and allocate it towards supporting veterans in my district. So I just that's a good start. So there's a lot of pork that you've got to sort through, but right off the top of my head, those are the first couple of things that we could possibly get rid of. I don't like the idea of teaching social issues to our children and to our high schoolers and to our young adults when most of them don't understand how to manage a brokerage account. I feel like if if it was fair across the board, yeah, sure, teach whatever you want to teach, but you should also be teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, and things that are going to make them an actual productive American citizen. So I'm disappointed with a lot of this policy that's slithered its way through the sludge pipe in DC, and I can't wait to go up there and start ripping some of this stuff out. I'm not there to make friends. I'm there to be effective.
I love that, man. I love that. Yeah, exactly. And you're just seeing all this nonsense continually being flushed down, especially young kids' throats in elementary now, right? In middle school and in high school. My daughter, Bella, she's 15. She's part of TPUSA for their high school chapter. And so, a number of the classes and things that she's had to go through, arguments with teachers and so forth, who have tried to stand up to a 15-year-old with absolute nonsense. And when she delivers them facts and says, hey, why are we not actually focusing on the topic that this class says that it's all about? And then they have this blow up. I mean, they go off into this mass hysteria. And at the end of the day, what you identify is this is all about indoctrination. It is all about taking these young minds who are sponges at this point in time and trying to corrupt them so they get this ideology going into college. And then you find these nutcases who are these people who go out and commit these crimes, etc., and hate crimes and shootings. All the nonsense that we've seen is all, I think, foundationally put in place from this woke ideology, which at its core is demonic, in my opinion. It's spiritual in nature. And so
Again, God gives choice, right? If that's your prerogative and that's what you want to do, that's great. But leave the kids alone. That's not that
that's
has
right.
nothing to do with the children, that has nothing to do with the kids, and that has nothing to do with education. That is a personal preference. America, my friends fought and died so you could have those freedoms, but keep it away from the kids and keep it away from the schools. That is my personal opinion. And if people disagree with that, I guess we can just disagree to disagree. It doesn't belong in
Amen
the
to that.
schools, and it sure in hell doesn't belong being funded by the taxpayer dollar. That is craziness to me.
Amen to that. Yeah, and that's exactly how people are feeling, and we're done with it. We're fed up, and we want to see some actions and some changes. And so, Alex, for young conservatives, okay, first-time voters, which I've spoken to a lot of them, especially going now to a number of college campuses and sitting down, we're having faith conversations, but then the conversation pops up about politics, and they want to know how it works. So for first-time voters and for young conservatives who feel, a burning inside for politics, right? What's your direct message to them about why they should step in and fight alongside you?
Get out the boat.
That's
I
right.
mean, it's simple. Get out of the boat. You gotta use your faith. You gotta use your faith. If this is a Christian movement, Christ is with us, God is with you. Get out of the boat and trust that God's gonna guide your steps. You should join me because I got feet of fire right now, man. I'm running to battle. That's just where God's
Mm,
called me. And I think there's a lot of people that share that same sentiment. They just don't know how. I'm happy to be a champion for my generation because I understand that I got a tattoo years ago, and it's French for "Je suis mort pour le Christ," which means I'm a martyr for Christ. I'm willing to
mm.
die for this because Charlie died for this. Are you willing to die for this? That's my question I would say to these individuals. Are you willing to put your life on the line, like many service members, many veterans, many first responders have, to maintain the American dream for your children, your children's children to come? I'm inclined to think the answer is yes. So just get out of the boat and get going.
That's
It's
right.
just that simple.
That's powerful. Yep. And that's the thing is many are grabbing the flag, if you will, and they're running into battle. We're no longer on the defensive. We're on the offense. We're coming full-fledged. We're coming full force, but we do need great leaders. And that's why I'm glad we have you here. And Alex, I want to first and foremost, as we cap off, thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me. I think you've shared not only, your vision for Arizona's 5th district, but also I think your perspectives on the corruption, the election integrity, and I think the future of the conservative movement here in Arizona and across the nation. You're a great representative and example of that. I can see it, and you definitely have my vote in advance. And so for people watching who want to learn more about you, they want to get involved with you, maybe they want to support your campaign, where's the best place for them to connect with you and to do all that?
Well, I'm very active on Instagram, but Alex for Arizona, the number 4Arizona.com. And then WinRed links are all over my social media. Instagram has a WinRed link as well that you can donate and contribute. I am a firm believer that the American people are the ones that elect you and put you in office. So if you go look at my FEC, you'll see I'm a grassroots candidate at my core. We get small dollar donations, and we depend on small dollar donations and small dollars from local business owners inside of the community to ensure that my message gets out and that we're able to keep this movement going. So if you haven't chipped in yet, please do chip in $5. Trust me, it's very powerful, and God does amazing things with small amounts of money. I mean, we've seen it with the fish, right?
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And so I just want to say to all of my audience, please go and follow Alex on social media. Be sure to support him in any way that you can. This man is a man in the fight for the people and for the soul of this nation. He's a great representation of a Christian believer who's pushing truth